right, welcome to the broadcast. You're watching TV47 Weekend Edition. It's time to talk about To The Point. And tonight we are focusing on the International Day for the Elimination of Sexual Violence. This was a day commemorated by the United Nations in 2015 and is commemorated every 19th day of June. Now, let's just take a look at the significance of celebrating this day. Of course, it is to raise awareness of and also honoring victims of sexual violence and survivors, advocating for change and promoting accountability. Now, our guests are already in studio. That is Maggie Nyoike at the very far end. Maggie is a domestic violence survivor, and as well as Miss Mercy Wanjeri. Mercy is a psychologist. Now, just to start us off, Mercy and Maggie. Maggie, what is your definition of sexual violence?
My definition, good evening, viewers over
TV47.
TV47. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm glad to be here. And my description of sexual violence would be anything that is forced, that is done against your will, mm-hmm. that you have not consented, that it's against your will, and it is enforced on you. Mm-hmm. Sexually, that amounts to sexual violence. Mm-hmm. Of course, it has a lot of dimensions, but a brief description. Yes. In a nutshell.
All right, we'll be looking at that later on. We also have a very wider description from WHO, of course. But Mercy, what is your definition of this?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, viewers, for this opportunity. Sexual violence is anything that is against one's will, mm-hmm. because a human being has his own set of rules, and it is something that comes against your will as a human being. In psychology, we look at a person in their mental states. Mm-hmm. Is it aligned to your mental health? Are you a human being? And when you're violated, how do you face the society? What is that innate mm-hmm. values that you contain that have been violated? Mm. And so sexual violence affects one's mental states, mm-hmm. and affects the behavior and the environment that the person is in. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Of course, we are narrowing down to sexual violence tonight. And remember, on 19th June, whatever is being celebrated is the elimination of sexual violence in conflicts. Now, Maggie, have you by any chance experienced yours during conflict?
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. Being a survivor of domestic violence, you can never exonerate sexual violence from domestic violence. It's one of the violations that happens. It is one of the violations that has made people to lose dignity without coming out to really speak about it mm-hmm. in the public because of ridicule and the stigma that comes with it. Because we live in a very stereotype kind of society mm-hmm. that does not really see sexual violence as a crime. They view it as a right. They view it as a tradition. And so, and especially for women, if I would talk for women, it's not only against women, it's also against men. But the great numbers mm-hmm. are within the domain of women. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of women, because of their upbringing and their tradition, we are like the typical African bimbos who just go out there. And what once they get married, especially, you give in all to the man maybe, or your partner, or your friend, thinking this is a way mm-hmm. maybe to live a life of a relationship. Mm-hmm. And so you end up losing your dignity in it.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mercy, why do you think that this conversation about sexual violence, gender-based violence, is not talked much about, as Maggie said?
Yeah, I will reiterate what Maggie has said. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stigma. You know, in the African culture, once a woman is married and she's living with her husband, what happens inside the house, it's really very secretive. You see, we've come from a place whereby sex now is not something to be under the carpet. It is out here. And so now is the time to stop sexual violence in marriages, at homes, in families, because it's a violation. It needs to be spoken out. And I'm glad that in the 21st century, we are not keeping quiet. Things have to come out. You know already, we are in different generations. And so whatever that was hidden is now coming out. And we are urging women of all walks of life, not even women, even men, to speak up. Because you see, it's going to affect their mental states. As Nyuke has said, that it was there, but now it isn't. It's for people to speak up, and that's why the UN has spoken, has given us the conflict document that the awareness needs to be at the grassroots. Even the mama mboga, even somebody at the countryside has to speak up. Yes.
Mercy, which gender have you dealt so much with?
Gender? Yes. Oh, definitely. It goes without saying women. Women and girls, yes.
That just tells us that men don't speak much about this condition. But is it that there are no platforms for them to speak up about it, or what is the issue?
It's the culture. You remember, we are Africans and we hold culture so highly. So a man, remember, even when a boy cries, a boy should not cry. You see? Those stereotypes which really hurt a person. And so that is why men could not speak. But right now, a man should cry because it's emotional to cry and remove whatever you have in your heart. Because you see, the mind does not know whether this is a man or a woman. The mental states are constant. And so women speak a lot, girls speak a lot, but it's the high time the men stand up and say, this is what is happening to me. Yes.
All right, now let's just take a look at what WHO has to say about sexual violence. And this is any sexual act, attempt to obtain a sexual act, unwanted sexual comments or advances, or acts to traffic or otherwise directed against a person's sexuality using coercion by any person, regardless of the relationship to the victim, in any setting, including but not limited to home and work. Now, Mercy, you know, when we're talking about men also going through gender-based violence or sexual violence, just for instance, how do they maybe encounter this for those that you've dealt with?
Okay, most of the time at workplaces, we have many cases, even when a woman is a boss and the subordinates are men. And sometimes maybe this is out of admiration. Others is because of they want promotions, they want favors. So most of the time work related, the highest number. But again, even in marriages today, I mean, things have changed. I don't know if, and you remember that even nowadays girls are also advancing towards boyfriends, you know, men friends, because we are coming out of the centuries whereby women were regarded as the weaker sex. Currently, a woman is sitting in boardrooms. A woman is found in high places. And so this is the time not to see a woman as a sexual object, but a person who can make rules and govern, you know. And that's why the shift and the conflict is coming up, because currently women are the CEOs of companies. And so that does not mean that they are also not attracted or would like favors from the men. So currently we cannot say it's only the woman. It's the man and the woman at the same time. Yes.
All right, Maggie, would you say that as women, we are also most prone to sexual violence at workplaces, like Mercy say?
I say the greatest number still falls on women, and being the patriarchal society mostly, except for now that the numbers are coming up, that we have now institutions now recognizing women as CEOs and the senior most directors of companies and managers. A long time it used to be a man's role, but that is changing with time. And I would like to highlight something she said very important concerning the sexual violence at the place of work. and the sexual harassment in the place of work. I remember when I was about 20, I was employed in a hotel, and my Indian boss was about 60 years or so. You see the 20 and the 60?
Yeah.
And he used to reside at the penthouse of the hotel. And he used to get young girls like you now, your age, and he would make them like the mistresses. And the harassment that came with it, because they were made to stay with no bras, they were not supposed to really dress decently, because they were like a harem of girls that he used to have. And I remember that one of the girls was from Tanzania and she had to go on leave. And the boss approached me because he had made me the supervisor in the hotel. And he said, in 2 weeks, I want you to start now serving me at the penthouse. And young as I was, I could not really take that and had to quit the job. So I worked for the next 2 weeks that matter. And then I quit the job. So there are people who have their own dignities, they will rather quit than to bow down to the sexual harassment at the places of work. So we've had a lot of women who have lost jobs, mainly and especially maybe they are married women, and they have their dignity for their own marriages. So they would not like to really engage. Maybe it's a girl who has their own dignity. They would not like really to really engage in these kind of activities. So they end up either being fired or firing themselves, because I fired myself that time. And yeah, it was such an experience, because I was not really I was wondering, a 60-year-old, how do I even handle such a person? You understand, to start with.
Yeah.
It was very ironical. But this happens, and the greatest number, to answer you, has been women victims.
All right, Mercy, Maggie, we're very grateful that you have agreed to share your story generously with us.
Yeah.
But where would you say you have most experienced sexual violence as a survivor?
At home. That is the domestic violence. Because we know, as we said, it is unspoken because of the many reasons. First and foremost, there is fear that comes with it. That's why people never speak. At times it's about age. Maybe you married young, so you are not really experienced. At times it's because of maybe your current circumstances, your economic status. So it doesn't allow you to speak and resist. So at the home setup, mostly, this really happens. And it happens mostly to the people who are married, their spouses now committing the same crime. And also we have house girls. Let us not forget the house managers that we have in the houses also are also victims of sexual violence. We have also maybe children in the setup of a home, or even people, our kin, who are in the setup of home who have mental issues. And so they cannot consent. So at home is a very thriving environment for sexual violence without other people knowing. It's very, very hidden. Unless you see maybe signs, even children, this is where they also suffer most. Sexual violence, you know, committed maybe by the people who are taking care of the children, or even their own parents. You know, you've had even fathers and mothers raping their own children and or defiling them. You know, so the home setup has been a place where sexual violence has thrived, and that is where I've noted mostly, because I have a journey of 28 years of a toxic marriage relationship, where, and you know, of course, when the violence comes around a home, it comes with the now. Of course, you're not comfortable with the person. You cannot trust them. You don't have any love for them anymore, because whenever they are violating you and they're beating you up, there's no sexual attraction towards them. And then you withdraw. And what happens when we withdraw? The violence will be aggravated. And so you'll encounter rapes in the marriage. You'll encounter mistreatment and maltreatment as far as the setup is concerned. And I know we are many in this, and I'm glad that I'm here on this TV station to speak about sexual violence very loudly, to prohibit and condemn, because it ought not to happen. Everybody has dignity, and everybody should be given a chance to consent in such of sexual relationships that happens. And so some of the demeaning issues maybe I've experienced is that they will take up, if you decline, and they force you and you're not enforceable, they'll maybe take your house girl and start sleeping with them. And that is very demeaning.
Right.
You know, they'll bring women in your house and sleep right under your roof, under your matrimonial bed as you watch. And so it is very tormenting, an issue. It is very disturbing, not only to the women who are there or the victims of the same, if there's a man, also it is to the children and the people generally in the community.
All right, Maggie, you have mentioned such very strong and courageous points, but I want to also know, for you personally,
yes,
when was your turning point? When did you choose that this is not for me, I have to leave?
I would say 2010, that is how many years to now?
24 years ago.
Yeah, about 12 years. I did, yes, about 12 years, because what used to happen is that when these advances are thrown or you don't consent, there'll be a fight. You'd even be sleeping and somebody slaps you and you fall on the ground. I remember one time it happened. I did a self-removal from the bedroom because of the violence. And so when I separated myself from the man, so the violence still proceeded to the bedroom that I escaped to, because we had a matrimonial home. And I would say I was very, very unsafe. For the 12 years, it was such a resistance. It was very tormenting to me and the children. I think my third child, I have 3 children, my third child does not know what is Baba and Mama looks like in terms of the setup of our marriage, because exactly almost the same time when I was expectant with this child is when I did the self-removal so that I could be safe, because the promiscuity and the violence was too much. So I could not quit, because my business, I've been a business person, and so my business came down because the pregnancy came with a lot of challenges, and so I had to be given a bed rest. The doctor asked me, either you let the baby abort or you continue business. So I chose the baby instead, and so I lost the business. So I'm here with minus no income except for my weekly savings. So I'm still in the confinement, but I did a self-removal. I say I healed. I started healing and exonerating myself from this violence within the same toxic relationship, until I call it situationship, until the man moved out.
12 years. I realized I said 24.
Yes.
That math almost took me out for a moment. But Mercy.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, how do you deal with such when they come to you to seek maybe refuge?
Yeah. As a marriage and family therapist, I look at the safety of an individual, a human being. You see, if a woman comes to me and she's going through domestic violence, sexual violence, we look for life. I mean, we look for a safe place. Because you see, where is this woman? We've already had Nyoike talking about she was pregnant. And what happens to a mother who is pregnant? If she's experiencing mental issues, it transfers directly to the child who is unborn. And so you see, this woman, if she's not in a safe space, the whole generation is not in a safe space. And so what happens is, the first thing is, are you safe? We look for safety. You see, if there's violence, we can see there's a child who is almost aborting. We are looking for 2 people who should be alive, and maybe others who are at home. So the first thing, we look at the magnitude. I normally look at the magnitude. How is it? Is it resolvable? If it is the man who is abusive, can we reach out to the man to help him see? These are 2 people who is making them uncomfortable. If it is the woman who is making a man and his son uncomfortable, we reach out to them. But in case we see the magnitude and the safety is needy, we have to secure the victim first, the person, the client. And so most of the time, we do an assessment to see how much. Most of the time, my clients have anxiety issues. Some of them are suicidal. Others are depressed. And you see, people do not know they are depressed until they get depressed. And this always comes when the environment is not safe, when the environment is bad. And this is a question I always ask. why do women stay, or why would a man stay in a marriage? What are the grounds? Why should I stay? Why should they stay? Because of many issues. And I know, Anne, as we continue, you're going to ask me that question. Yeah.
All right, now that you mentioned it,
Yes.
I was just writing it down so that I don't forget that point.
Yes.
Maggie, why do women stay? She asked it.
A lot of factors. I know a lot of people would say stupid. A lot of people will say you're brainless. A lot of things have been said to people who stay in these kind of conditions. But as she says, one of them could be mental. You know, you don't know really when you become a victim of this kind of violence. You don't understand, you don't run time. There's no clock on you to know that it's about time to say no to it, because you have been very, very much depressed until you don't think. You've seen people who get depressed until they don't move out of their beds, or they're just there, they're just like dummies. Exactly. Their mental is affected. So if their mental, the mental health is affected, they don't tell themselves to move. That's one. Two, it's the economic issue. You know, you don't have money maybe to run away and maybe to a safe place. And so you'll stay there because this, and especially if the aggressor is a person who has a high end in earning income, so you become their victim properly. The other thing is that indecisiveness, and why the indecisiveness is because of the stigma that comes with it. What are people going to say, right? Again, the same people, you're asking yourself, what are they going to say? They also encroach in something I call the kangaroo courts, the family kangaroo courts.
All right, just hold it right there. But when we come back after this short break, Mas is also going to tell us why women stay or why men stay after this break.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni Ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
At what point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business, it's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries, and turning dreams into reality.
Hata ambao ni pesa ya kusave, wallahi. Mbao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators, and risk takers out there, remember, being an entrepreneur isn't just a job, it's a way of life. Join the journey. Become an entrepreneur. The Grind, Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Here
right, welcome back to the broadcast. You're watching To The Point, and we are talking about the International Day for the Elimination of Sexual Violence in Conflict. This day was commemorated on 19th June. That was on Thursday. But our guest in studio, Maggie Nyoike, a survivor, and Mercy Wanjoi, a psychologist. Before we went on that very short break, we were talking about why do women stay in cases where sexual violence is prevalent. Mercy.
Yes, we've been given an overview already. Nyoike has it, why she stayed. But why women stay is because of many reasons. First is the societal pressures. They want to be Mrs. So and so, you know, where you're married, you know, when a woman goes down the aisle, she belongs to that family and she feels at home. And yet she's going through a lot of torture in the marriage. That is one thing, the society. Another thing is culture, you know. A woman who comes out from her marriage is stigmatized. I mean, why did you leave? I mean, I was there, even it was worse than you. I mean, I suffered a lot. You know, you would hear such comments. And so they would fear coming out because of stigmatization. Others stay because of their children. They do not want their children to be fatherless or motherless. And so the man chooses just to stay with those toxic environments. And others are economic, as Nyoike has said. If a woman or a man does not have good income, they will stay. And if maybe they have a higher income and they're looking at, hey, you remember that thing of crying in a limo than,
yes.
you know, than in a bicycle?
Land Rover.
Yes, so that is it. So they end up sacrificing their mental status because of tangible things, because of wealth that come and go. And so those are the factors that make women or men to stay, and they forget themselves. And this is the game changer. We always say, consider yourself first before the kids, before wealth, before the family name, before, I mean, the privileges. What are your mental states? Because at the end of the day, these women or men end up getting depressed. They end up losing their lives. They end up succumbing to the pressure. So which is the best pressure? Is it the one that you're in, the toxic, or the pressure of like, you're okay, your mental states are good, and you can get a job when you're sober. But in a toxic relationship, even getting that mind of getting a job really is so toxic, because maybe your partner does not want to see you step out, because if, especially narcissists, they wouldn't let you do anything, both women or men. You're talking about both here. You know, I don't want my fans to like, I mean, you're on this side. No, we're talking about both. Right. It's either men or women. So if they are narcissists, they just want you to revolve within their confines, and then they'll be taking you, like changing you the way they want. This lane, and that lane. And so this is the game changer. It is good to consider self, mental states. How are you from head to toe? Everybody is created to thrive. So my question is, are women or men thriving in their marriages? Are men and women thriving in their workplaces? What are the causes? And we really look, what are the avenues that are making you sad? What are the avenues that are making you worried? What are the avenues that are making you lose weight all of a sudden? Sleepless nights, insomnia. I mean, people feel, they fear, they don't want to sleep because already they have a conflict. I'm married, but this is not the marriage I expected. You already, Nyoike has talked about it. And so staying has many factors, but for me and scientists, social scientists, are you happy? That is our slogan. Are you happy? If you are happy, then is this the only issue? Can we work with it? But if it's not workable, then it has to end. Yes.
All right, those are very great questions right there, Mercy, and you're going to pose them to our viewer. Are you happy in your marriage or at your workplace? Now, Mercy, you've also mentioned something very interesting, that the current trend right now is heri nilie kwa Range Rover, or however they call it, a Land Rover, Range Rover, you know. And my question is, do you think that right now, the current society, we have normalized walking out or staying in these toxic relationships or marriages as compared to how it was in the previous days?
Yes, definitely. I know the statistics currently because of COVID-19 and the economic issues that we're having all over the world. There's a lot of divorce rates currently. But again, there's a lot of awareness. Both men and women are aware. This one is toxic. This one, I can go with her up to this level. And so people are having that awareness. There is YouTube, there's Google, there is all these technology information that is out there to see, to look out. You see, gone are the days when dating, for example, I mean, people are going for premarital counseling. You know, if it's a girl and a man and a woman, they have to go so that they measure themselves. Nowadays, it's so easy to notice the traits of a person. What are their personalities? What are their backgrounds? What are their beliefs? And so before you enter into this binding contract forever, you already know this person I can live with. This one I can't be able to live with. And if you're in there, there's a lot of awareness. And what we say is, as a marriage and family therapist, is what attracts you, by the way. I mean, you can't stay forever not attracted. I mean, attraction is the key. So what is this that is making your heart pound? I mean, when I see you, it's paragasha, you know. I mean, I feel good when I see you. What is the spike? Because if the spike is not there, then it's going to be toxic, it's going to be rough, and we don't want it to go there. So again, what do we do? If a couple, for example, notices there's a problem, there's always communication. What is the problem? Are you coming late nowadays? And yesterday you drank a lot. I mean, you did this to the kids. People need to talk so that the environment can be conducive for the kids, for the wife, for the man. And let me tell you, Anne, you will notice a woman who is happy in her marriage. You will notice. She's vibrant, happy, she's getting sex, she's getting love, she's getting everything. You will also know a man who is happy in his marriage. He's always saying hi to everyone in the office. I mean, showing off his family, you know. I mean, you cannot hide these things. But when it's toxic, it's the same. A woman will come with a black eye. She'll come when her clothes are worn upside down. She's shaking all over. She cannot perform at her workplace because she's remembering the toxic relationship. She cannot be in peace. And so what I always advocate is be like a policeman or a woman. Look out for any red flag. You know, that is the way out to know whether you are in a toxic relationship or not. Yes.
Maggie.
Yes.
What do you think? Have we normalized staying in this current generation, or are we walking out as compared to your days?
Wow, thank you. Because before we had less information, and whenever we used to seek for counsel, we are seeking from religious societies, if you're a Christian, or from the imams or wherever, if you are a Muslim or a Hindu, from their temples. We're also seeking from parents or even the people who were earlier married and they're older than you in the society. And what they tell you is exactly what Mercy said. If you go back to your mother, my mother, even if she's late, may her soul rest in peace, she passed on when she was 70. If I would tell her I am being violated sexually, she would think I'm a fool. And she would advise you need to give it more. And stop being manga in that case. Stop being stubborn. You know, you should just bow down and be able to cooperate with the man, no matter. So the source of information was kind of very limiting earlier in our days, except for now that, as she said, it's all over in the social media. I would come across Maggie's. I have a channel called GOtv Kenya. And what I'm doing is educating people on the red flags. As she said, what are the red flags in this, in a narcissistic situationship? What should you do when you notice such? First, as she said, you should look into self before you even think you're very comfortable in this zone of, I'd rather cry in a Mercedes Benz than on a bicycle. One thing I did when I started the cell removal was because we had a family car. I stopped riding in that car because one time it happened that I fell actually in the city. I fell off. The way you can think you've tripped over a staircase, and I thought it's a normal fall, only to roll on the ground and I'm screaming and I've lost myself. And he's told you take her to the hospital. And I was not taken to any hospital. And I went home and I was swelled up. And that's the way I slept, you know, in my clothes and in my swelling. And when I woke up in the morning, that's when I realized I'm in another state. I could not take this anymore. And because it used to be noise, because he's one is driving me, we go to work and we are working in the same business and going home. So you can imagine the toxicity of him insulting you and you exchanging words, because at times you become a coward until it reaches a point where I say, that's it, you know. And when we reach a point of that's it, now there's the hot and the heated exchange, you know. I'm not quiet anymore. We're exchanging and we are trying to normalize issues. And we go to the city and come back. And the same, imagine, noise really affected me this much without me knowing. And I sat down that morning and I cried. And I said, I can't take this anymore. I think I'd rather do away with a lift. My Q is a car we had bought as a family car, so we work hard together to buy, but it is the man car. The patriarchal society again. So we've normalized it. But in this generation, I see that my daughter, I have a 22-year-old daughter, my second born, and she says, I can't take this rubbish. You know, she watches and she prohibits and she says, this is wrong. Even if the father wants to talk about it, like, you know, when they were little younger, he used to talk to them and tell them stuff. But they're of age, above 18 now. Now they know we cannot take this kind of thing anymore. Now we know, we are in the know. So the education that is there in the social media is doing us good, I would say. And also we have a lot of caucuses that are going on. A TV station like this, when you bring up these kind of topics, should be encouraged more and more, so that we can continue educating people on this. Let them visit to our YouTube channels so that they can be able also to learn from our experiences. They don't have to be the victims. They need to be victors. Right.
All right. Let's take a look at the 2024 theme, that is a focus on health. And the UN says this day of 2024, hospitals and other healthcare facilities should be beacons of safety and healing for all those injured during these conflicts. Okay, as Maggie. So, Mercy, do you think that hospitals are partaking this role as the UN states?
Yes, they are doing that because it's treated as an emergency. For example, if a child has been abused, it is an emergency. If a woman has been abused, it's an emergency. A man, and the list goes like that. There are desks in hospitals for that, for the sexual violence. There are desks in police stations, the gender desks, whereby the public needs to report in case of anything. Schools, nowadays, there's a lot of awareness. I normally visit schools. And when I talk to the head teachers, they report to me about sexual violence for kids, you know, 10-year-olds, 14-year-olds who have been violated even by their parents. And they have desks, they have teachers who they have assigned. And so there's a lot of awareness. And this is not business as usual. There are also psychologists like us who now are able to mend, who are able to work with the sexual the victims, you know, because they felt violated. They have stigma. Maybe they got HIV. Maybe they got pregnant. Maybe they got a certain disease that they're battling with. And so every angle of the sexual violence has been taken care of. And I would like to applaud the organizations, as Maggie has said, that there are many organizations now which are really human rights, women's rights, all over, to curb. I don't know if there's also men's rights, to curb the sexual violence. And this is a health issue, you remember? Because you see, if a person has been violated, their life stands. So it is a mental issue, it is a physical issue, you know, which needs to be addressed. And I want to thank all the organizations which are in the limelight to cater for this. Yes.
All right, Maggie.
Can I say something on that?
Okay.
We not want to wink our eye that nothing is happening. I want to personally applaud Nairobi Women's Hospital because I've been a victim, and they attend you as an emergency, as she says, and they don't even charge you for a coin. And they give you counseling, they give you treatment, they're even ready to speak in court. Because the other thing that is a challenge, why we are not able to eliminate this problem, is because I don't want to put a blame game on the government, but I also want to comment on the issue of the police, because there is a time I used to be violated so highly until the neighbors used to call in police. And the guy would go in and bribe and get out. I'm unashamedly on these cameras to say so, because I'm a victim of the same, of those police stations. And I want to prohibit highly the kind of stigma that goes with it. When you go to report, they lighten the matter. And one of the things, there's a very big fault. Probably the women in the parliament and the parliamentarians, even men, should look into the law of sexual violence and try and see some amendments. And this is where I see the fault when you go to, you go and report to a police station. Yes, there's a desk. But unfortunately, also even the women who are assigned to you, they are also the patriarchal society, so the woman is in the wrong. So they will not treat you right. Then also the police will trivialize this matter and also mock you in the same manner. Then one of the things that weakens also the cases of sexual or gender-based violence is a system, the bureaucratic process of getting justice. When somebody asks you, and I say that in my channel, when me and you, Anne, we're fighting, and we're in the house, the two of us, and I have an injury, that is a sign I've been injured. And you tell me to go to a hospital, and I get a P3, and the doctor is my witness. But when we go to court, now they bring in the issue from the police, the IOs who are following your cases. They will ask you for a witness. We don't have CCTV cameras in most of the homes. So where the hell are you expecting me to get witnesses in my house? And probably even the children who are there to witness are young. And you know, a minor, unless they're of a certain age who can talk, they cannot be able to defend your cause. So we end up being these assaults being propagated highly because the aggressors are never brought to book. Actually, if you go to courts, most of these cases are very rare to go through, that you're jailing people. Because I say for my case, if my action was taken early, probably I could not have lost that marriage, and probably this man could have been rehabilitated earlier. Because if you put this man maybe 3-6 months in jail, then he would have known there's pain in doing this. He would never dare. And also the person will also get an opportunity maybe to get out and be safe, because safety is key.
All right. Yeah. Mercy, now as we wind up, what would you say to maybe people going through sexual violence but haven't really gotten their voices to speak up about it? What is your parting shot?
It's the high time. And before I even give my parting shot, I would like to respond a little bit to what Maggie has said. That before it reaches there, before the violence escalates, I think it's gone too much. It should be just the red flag, and it is uncomfortable. Because you see, nobody should be uncomfortable forever, because that now is toxic. So it's always good to see the red flag, see the pattern, and decide, is this what you want or not? The stigma can stay for now. The societal pressures can stay, because we're looking at self. And so my parting shot is, there are places whereby there is places where people can go in organizations. At the police, right now, I would like to really applaud. There's a gender desk that is really currently very active at the police stations, the hospitals, and because these things are coming from houses, remember, there are kids there. whenever you spot your spouse or the family members with a certain behavior change, it leads to toxicity. And so people should be alert, very alert. I would like to put that emphasis. It's not business as usual. I mean, guys needs to be alert, and people need to do a regulatory thing, yeah? Let's look at ourselves, and that's my parting shot.
Right, Maggie, what would you say to those going through similar experience?
I applaud UN for this moment to celebrate and also to continue emphasizing, because one of the SDGs, Vision 2030, calls to call off violence, whether it is whatever setup of violence. And I want to applaud the organizations and setups of institutions that are coming up, the bloggers, everybody, to loud up, very loud, against domestic violence and sexual assault as my parting shot.
All right.
Every person should get out and condemn it. Every person should come out and speak. Look for an avenue to speak, reach the psychologists, reach some of us who have gone through the same experience, so that we can be able to sit around these kind of tables and be able to come up with a solution.
All right. Amasi, we have a message for you right here. We have Theo Masharia saying, tell the psychologists who said men should normalize crying to hold it right there. All right. Now, as we come to a close of our discussion tonight, that is the International Day for the Elimination of Sexual Violence, we will pose the question to you, are you happy? That is my parting shot as we close. Of course, thank you so much for watching. My name is Anne Odida, and thank you so much, ladies, for making time to come and grace our studios tonight and share generously with us your experiences. See you some other time, and have a good night.